This presentation was initially put together for Small Business Week late last year, and it was at a request from government that said we need a presentation to address a major fundamental issue facing all small businesses. Reason was that most of us, all of us, are so busy working in our businesses and on our businesses that we don't have time to keep up with trends. What are the latest things happening that are going to have an impact on our business? And I think that's the first step. You've got to recognise the fact the marketplace is changing, and if you want to absorb that information, and we've just decided to call the special ones who made the effort, that will help put you ahead of the pack and grow your business. A couple of interesting little numbers that I'm going to refer to, but before I do that, I just want to go on the record and say I don't like the term small to medium enterprise. I don't like being called SME. And I don't like being called SME because my business is a big part of my life. Here are some numbers for you. 85% of jobs created in the EU post-GFC have been created by small businesses. 85%. The figure in the United States is 65% and growing. Oh, we're getting blue lighting. Excellent. And Australia, the statisticians for the ABS are now starting to track the trend here. As was mentioned, anyone want to have a guess as to how many small businesses there are in Queensland? You've heard the number 400,000, so that give you a good start. It's 403,000. 403,000 small businesses in Queensland. Guys, some other interesting numbers. 97.4% of small businesses are 100% Australian owned. We buy and spend in our own economy. The small business sector employs over 50% of private company employees. And whilst the mining sector turned some big numbers at its peak in 2008, it was responsible for 1.7% of employment. 50%. 85% jobs growth. So, OECD countries. Anyone know of a guy called Qd State Govt? He's renowned as one of the top 4 economists in the world. This work is his. What Joseph has written, and he's actually got a Nobel Prize for this, is that Western societies, or OECD societies, are fragmenting into 3 self-interested groups. And this isn't only government, this is large major industries as well, large companies. They're fragmenting into a political class, a bureaucratic class, and the rest of society. Okay? The political class is typified by professional career politicians. Our societies now are developed enough to the point where we can support a professional political class. There is a learning process involved, and we're going through that learning process at the moment. But the political class is motivated by political power. Staying in power, and you can pretty much predict how that segment of society is going to work. And that could be a boardroom, it could be government. There is no difference. The bureaucratic class are all wonderful people with a mortgage, 2.1 dogs, 1.8 cars, a couple of kids in school, and what these people want to do is maintain the status quo and get the pay packet every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks. Unfortunately, because this is a conflicting model which is breaking down, self-interest comes in. So we get wonderful things happening like NBN broadbands that aren't installed, just the bits. Medicare locals that don't have any local offices. Crazy, crazy stuff. Bats that burn houses down, it goes on. And the third group is the rest of society. That's you guys. The guys that actually make stuff, provide services, do things, install things. And unfortunately, the societal model that we have is one that's based on a combative interaction. So it's competition rather than collaboration. It is changing very rapidly. So what you've got is these guys that just want to run the show, whether it's at BHP or in George Street. These guys that get whatever it takes, I just want a quiet life. And the rest of society. The frightening number is this, and this is US data, because the data's not easily available in Australia. The numbers would be the same or very similar. 27% of working adults generate 100% of GDP. And that's the problem. 1 in 4 working adults generates GDP. The rest are in administration, services, and so on. And you start to get situations where in the EU, the cost of running government is running at 54% of GDP. In Australia, the cost of running our governments is at 38% of GDP. It's a little bit better, but it means of every tax dollar collected, only 2/3 is available to do stuff. Okay? And you start to get a whole bunch of crazy things happening, which I've got some examples of. A taxation system. Anyone know how many taxes you've got to pay in Australia? Yeah, I know everyone. Oh, we've actually done the research and looked up the actual numbers. Anyone know?
700.
It's 125. We are each liable in our lifetime in Australia currently to pay 125 taxes. Any one of the tax systems broke. We've got unemployment is recorded as someone who doesn't work 1 hour a week. If you work 1 hour a week, you're employed. Industry trends. Now, these names are Danish, so I'll make sure that I get them right. Some interesting research done at MIT about the second machine age, done by a guy called Brynjolfsson and McAfee. And out of the entire book, this one graph is the one that caught me. This is a graph that tracks human history and calories per capita. Calories as in eating calories. So it's independent of currencies and everything else. It's as basic as it gets. And if you go to 8,000 BC and 6,000 BC and 4,000 BC, you can see that we're getting about enough calories to survive. Because we were hunter-gatherers, we used to wander around, club something, find something growing on a tree, and not a lot happened in human history. Around about the time of the Romans, the Egyptians, we started to learn a little bit of animal husbandry and a little bit of farming, and we were able to start producing surplus calories, more than we needed to consume. And it's interesting that at about this time that we started to produce surplus calories, a couple of things happened. Population started to grow, and I'll get to that in a tick. But we started to develop professions that in economic terms are called rent takers. These are people that don't produce their own calories but are able to talk other people out of some of their surplus calories. Okay? So we're talking religion, art, authors, a lot of the creative disciplines. It's that period that we started to have some reasonable wars, politics. These are people that didn't need to produce their own calories because they could take some off someone else. Now, notice the graph goes absolutely ballistic coming into the latter part of this century. Anyone want to have a guess as to what happened? It's a tough one. James Watt, steam engine, 1775. For the first time in human history, we were able to decouple productive work from human and animal muscle. Because you've got to feed a horse or feed a cow or feed a guy that's pulling a plough around. You don't need to do that for a steam engine. 1775, James Watt, the steam engine. Have a look at what happened with population growth. And concurrent with population growth, have a look at what happened with calories per capita. Massive, massive surpluses. I'm just going to leave that up there because I'm going to move to the whiteboard, because we're in a situation where we're going to have a little bit of a look into the future. And at the time that this book was written, it hadn't been updated to take in some of the latest trends. So we flatline, 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 flatline. We have a spike. I'll colour this in a little bit. So can you guys see that from the back?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So what we've got is Watt and the steam engine. 1775. Now there's a guy called Rifkin currently writing about the third industrial revolution, which we're going to get to. What actually happened with this graph later in this century is this. And then it did this. Now, the second big spike. Any guesses? Sorry? Not yet, but you're on the right track. Oil.
Machinery.
About 1900 is when the world went into oil, big time. 1910 is when the British Navy started to change from coal power to oil power. And oil contains far more calories. Now here's an interesting thing. Rifkin writes in his book that for an industrial revolution to occur, you need two things to happen simultaneously. Kind of simultaneously if you're talking history. You need a new form of communication and a new form of energy. Okay? What was the new form of communication with the steam engine? 1640. Gutenberg. The printing press. Bang on. So for the first time in human history, we had a machine that could produce thousands of books quickly, load them into a coal-fired ship, and transport information to the United States to anywhere in the world we wanted to. We're currently coming off the second industrial revolution, and this one was oil. In about 1870, a guy called Samuel Morse came up with electromechanical communication in the form of Morse code. We were able to send messages at the speed of electricity. So, new form of communication, new energy source. New form of communication, new energy source. Has anyone in the room heard of a thing called the internet?
No.
Anyone heard of it? Guys, this is where we are now. Now the new energy source will be electrical. There's no doubt in my mind about that. The jury's out on how we're going to store it. So what happens is, as we come off a peak, you start to have a little bit of a drop. Things get a little bit tight, things get a little bit tough. You're starting to have a little bit of a trough develop. And that's as the economy retrains. Down here, there were thousands of guys thrown off farms. All of the work that was done manually could be replaced by traction engines. Gone. When oil came in, the British Navy, there was massive unemployment because all the guys who used to carry coal down in the bow of the ships were all of a sudden replaced by one guy turning a tap. There will be reclaiming, there's no doubt about that at all. But the interesting thing is, there's about 100 years in there. There's about 30 years in there. All the smart money is saying that this industrial revolution will happen by about 2020. It's going to be really quick because we're so interconnected. So keep that graph in your mind.
I did a figure of that.
Disruptive technologies. Pretty much every paradigm that we've grown up with is going to be disrupted. I'm 56, I'm old enough to remember seeing my first fax machine in Kununurra in WA. And I was amazed that this Texan was able to write his reports, put it on the machine, and it would turn up in Houston. Never seen it before. We used to communicate with telex in those days. Anyone remember the paper tapes?
I used to use one of them.
Disruptive technologies. Roger's going to take you through some examples of what these disruptive technologies are. But the sorts of things that you're seeing are in the United States, 15% of shopping malls are closed. The numbers projected to be 35% by 2030. It's internet shopping. Now we do still follow trends here. There are still shopping centre investments being sold in Australia. You're now empowered to know that the US is shutting them down. Everything that we've grown to be used to is up for disruption. I'll hand over to Roger. We've still got something going forward.
Thank you very much. This is a really important session that we want to go into and give you some examples of what's going on in the world in this age of digitisation. And it's all happening around us, and the leaders are with it and changing, and the next generation, the ones born after 1980, you'll find that you're getting a lot of disruption and even talking to the next generation. The whole world is changing so dramatically. So the themes that I wanted to cover with you today is digitisation, hopefully to give you some idea of what's going on. The difference between the experiential aspects, it's not all going to be digital. There's two streams forming. One is experiential. We are a community, we are people. We are people who like working with people. We're going to go far more into a regional environment, a community environment. That's where we're going. And this age, the power of digitisation enables us to do it. Because if you follow the trend that John's just described to you here, this was boom. Huge amount of wealth. This was boom. Huge amount of wealth. And if the trend is right, what's going to happen here? More wealth than we can even envisage. And it's for everybody. The only trick is we don't know how to cope with it and what to do with it. But we have to change to understand what the hell's going on. So, the other aspect too, I'll talk about digitisation, experiential, and big data. You've got to come to grips with the concept of big data, and that's one of the areas that all of you will be making a lot of money in the future. Okay, John mentioned very quickly that we've got an instability in society, particularly with the political classes and the changes. We've had 5 changes in federal governments in 5 years. The average punter is not happy. And with this change in the political class system, we are all unhappy because it's just not working. However, we did elect people, and those people at a federal level did spend $40 billion of your money in the NBN. So this NBN that you asked them to put in is now your opportunity to start using it. It's the highway of the future. It's the wealth channel for the future. Society at a global level spent more money in recent years on the internet. Over 50% of the investment of the world has gone into this channel. And the last time society spent 50% of its wealth was in fact in 1890. Way back here, before even oil took off. And they spent the money in railway systems. More than 50% of the world's wealth went into railway system, and you can see the power of that action. Imagine putting a railway in from Brisbane all the way up to Cairns, and the wealth that was opened up, all that land, all the sea was all opened up by the transportation system going from one spot to another. Enormous wealth generated by the railway. The internet is that channel now. So the infrastructure, the railway line has been put in, now we have to know how to use it. And that's the state that we're in at the present time. Okay, in the internet era, let's just learn a bit about it. 95 to 2010 was basically the first phase of the internet era. And in that era, certain things happened. In essence, the power which is being generated, the power gives you knowledge for nothing. So you can find out anything you want, basically using the power of the computer. So power has been given, the knowledge has been given to you basically for nothing. The other thing that changed dramatically in 95 to 2010 is the power has moved from business owners to their customers. So the customers now are in charge. So you've got to understand that the whole dynamic of however you're running businesses has now dramatically changed and changed forever. 2010 until 2025, the power of this computer is now going to become more intelligent. So for the next 15 years, expect smarter and smarter systems. And there's a prediction made that by 2045, does anybody know what the prediction is in this power game that's being played? Artificial intelligence will then outgun human. So that's the screen that we're going to. Okay, so that's the game that we're playing. We're now going to have more intelligent systems. Okay, let's just go through some of the industries that have already dramatically been impacted. Can you remember the music industry? LPs, black things that used to spin around. Bob Dylan was at his peak. Sensational. Give me a guitar. Alright, they were the good old days. What's happened to the music industry? Smashed. All gone. Everybody's on the road to make money. It's all free. Pirates, everything. You get music for nothing. The printing industry. Huge printing presses we used to have. All gone. Newspaper industry. I love telling the story. If I could think back, we're all smart 2020, this is way back when. In the 1990s, all the major newspapers used to have very traditional Fairfaxes and all those guys sitting around in boards, kicking the something or others out of all the CEOs. Every 3 years they used to kick them, turn them over, and in the end they were all sacked because they couldn't get the newspaper industry back to the golden days. What did the board of directors need in the late 1990s on their board?
IT.
Sorry? Yeah, they wanted some nerdy 18-year-old kid on the board, and that kid, you could pay him $200,000, didn't matter what you paid him, because he had the truth. And the only message he had to do at every board meeting to say is, you're all dead. And the board members, they can do all their things and talk all they want. Every meeting he comes along, we're paying him $200,000 a year, and he's got one message, we're all dead. What's he talking about? He understood the internet. So the dynamics of that, there are lead indicators as to what the changes are, and you cannot fight these trends. They are the truth of the future. So, that's where we're up to. All the changes that are going on. Now, what does all this mean? Here is the best example of what digitisation is all about. What does this do? Some of the characteristics of this little monster. It's a phone. It's a computer. It's a bank.
Music machine.
It's an SMS machine. It's email. It's a camera.
It's your encyclopedia.
It's a direction file. It's a map.
It's a newspaper.
It's a newspaper. In this little thing, all those things exist. This is the ultimate model of digitisation. Anybody here with the manufacturing? For a current business, manufacturing, it can be a lawyer business. It doesn't matter what business we're in. Remember, digitisation is going to get every one of us. You're running a manufacturing company, chances are you've got suppliers. You've got a purchasing department. You have got a manufacturing department. You've got an accounting department. You've got an administration department. You have got a sales department. All of them heading towards getting a product or something to a customer. Is that business digitised? Anything that is repeatable will be digitised. That's the future. And so the way we've thought about business and the way we've thought about employment in the past is totally different to how we do it. Digitisation, it's huge, it's here. Experiential, you've got to work on getting experiences far more, and using big data is part of the new equation.
Thanks, Roger. And I'm just going to go straight to your question. Yes, there will be, and historically there will be, unemployment. It'll be retraining. But every industrial revolution prior to this one has resulted in far greater employment, a higher standard of living, and more leisure time. So I don't know about you, but more employment and more leisure time kind of works for me. This one here created the middle class. We all got houses, we all got cars. More than one car in many times. The only thing is that it looks a little bit bleak and dismal at the moment is we're looking at a little snapshot like that. Every industrial revolution, there's been two, so I know it's not a big sample, but the previous two industrial revolutions have resulted in an improvement in standard of life. Does anyone know what a serf is? S-E-R-F. Okay, they were indentured workers and that's how the world operated up until about 1700. The deal was, the Lord of Manor, who had some real estate, said, you can build yourself a house there, but you come and work for me for free and I pay you nothing. There was significant unemployment that occurred at the time when the steam engine came in. But the early adopter of technology, the serf that could read, was able to go into the village and see that there were boats going down at the colonies, either in Australia or in the United States or anywhere else in the world where they could get a grant of land. They became land owners. They got to keep their crops. Better still, they could pass it on to their kids. Inheritance was invented. So trust me on this, we will come out in better shape than we have even been in this era here.